Yeah, I was here the whole time. You just you didn't see me somehow. Maybe the border's closed between the
Yeah,
United
I don't
States
know
and
what's
Canada.
going on. They cut down the cell phone lines, you know? You never know nowadays. Well, first of all, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our special event tonight. I have the special privilege to have a fireside chat with the one, the only, Mr. Eli Beer. For those that don't know me, my name is Rabbi David Kadosh, Rabbi of the Sephardic Kehila Center in Thornhill, Ontario. You may not know where Thornhill, Ontario is. That is just north of Toronto, from just north of here. But really, I'm acting on behalf of all the Sephardic rabbis of the community and of you, the Sephardic community. And what can we say? We have the great privilege to sit here and talk with tonight's guest. Tonight's event has been organized by Mrs. Ilana Carr, who you've probably heard in the last few minutes, works tirelessly for supporting United Hatzalah behind the scenes. What she does goes unmatched. Kol hakavod to you, and may Hashem bless you in the merit of all the great work that you do. Ilana will be monitoring the chat on Zoom. If you have any questions for Ellie and time permits, we'll be glad to ask on your behalf. I also must mention Mr. Isaac Oziel, the Sephardic connection to tonight's event, no question. Isaac approached me 2 weeks ago asking me to conduct this chat under the Sephardic Community of Toronto umbrella. All I did was agree to be the interviewer, but he is and continues to be the shining light for our community, the one with the big ideas. And may you too, Isaac, can you continue to do what you do for us, and Hashem should repay you thousandfold for all the chesed and volunteering that you perform. Rabotai, yet again, I sit here in front of you, in this front of the screen, welcoming you to this amazing event, and yet again, our brothers and sisters in Eretz Israel sit and watch in fear and fright, not knowing what will be. No longer is it just in the south, but now it's in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv. The hubs of our homeland are getting bombarded with missiles and rockets. Video captured and posted are enough to make you shake to the core. Here in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, we continue to pray, to recite Tehillim, to think and feel for our loved ones living in dread, living in panic. We ask Hashem to spread His mercy on the citizens of Eretz Israel and protect our Chayalim, Chayalei Tzeva Gana Yisrael, who are on the front lines as we speak, risking their lives for the sake of Klal Yisrael. Asher yishmor et chayalenu mikol tzara v'tzuka umikol nega umachala. Amen. Ken yeh ratzon. I would like to give you a short biography of tonight's guest. But we saw a video for those of you that were here early. But for those that just walked in or trolled in or joined in, Eli Beer is a social entrepreneur and founder of United Hatzalah, Israel's preeminent rapid response community-based EMS network made up of over 6,000 volunteer medics who respond to more than 1,800 calls daily in under 3 minutes, anywhere in the country, free of charge. United Hatzalah's signature ambucycles, which are really motorcycles outfitted as ambulances, are instantly recognized all over the country along with the medics. Over the last 15 years, this organization has grown significantly and includes a range of other emergency vehicles and unique programs that have secured United Hatzalah's reputation as a global leader in medical innovation. In 2013, Eli Beer was featured in a TED Talk discussing the origins of the organization and shared his vision for bringing this life-saving model to other countries around the world. Eli Beer, welcome. I must admit the level of nerves and anxiety right now on my part is very, very high, having so many people listen to our conversation. Normally, conversations between two people remain private until one of the subjects decides to choose or to share what it's about to somebody else. But here we are, inviting everyone to listen to our conversation and be a part of it. There's 88 participants right now, 89 plus many with their spouses. So there's quite a few people listening right now and wanting to be a part of it, wanting to hear your story. So we'll just start generally and we'll focus in as we go. Tell me a little bit about yourself First of all, where are you at this very moment? I see palm trees in the background. It is so dark behind me, not only because it's close to sunset, but it's also cloudy, windy, stormy. I don't know what to say here in Canada. What's going on? I take it you're not in Canada, because if you were, you'd be subjected to probably 4 months of quarantine and isolation. So what's going on? Where are you right now? Share with the public.
Can everyone mute themselves, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'm right now in Los Angeles. I was scheduled to come here and give a tour. I spoke this Shabbat in the Young Israel of North Beverly Hills, and at the Sephardic synagogue here in Beverly Hills. So I was speaking here, and unfortunately, it caught me right in the beginning of another terrible event. We just had Meron last week. We forgot about Meron, one of the worst events we ever had in Israel. I was unfortunately very involved with what was going on there. And now 125 missiles as we are talking towards Israel, Bnei Brak, Ramat Gan, Tel Aviv, Holon, and other cities. So this is where I am. I'm in Los Angeles, but my heart, like your hearts, like all your hearts, are in Israel.
Libi b'mizrach v'anochi b'sof ma'arav, the famous words of Rabbi Yehuda Halevi. I'm sure that's what we all feel right now. So you live in Israel with your family. Where in Israel are they safe? I'm hoping they are safe. And of course, we pray for them. Which part of Israel do you live? North, south, center?
So I was born in Jerusalem. I was born in Beit Vagan. Maybe you remember Beit Vagan. It was a beautiful, nice neighborhood. But I live now in Ramot, which is the north part of Jerusalem. And my family have 5 kids and 1 grandchild, and I miss them very much. It's not easy to be abroad, to be so far away in Los Angeles, and to know that all my brothers and sisters in Israel are in trouble, and my family's in trouble. My wife actually was telling me today, while we were talking, a siren started in Jerusalem, and my wife grabbed my daughter, my 13-year-old daughter, and ran. We live on the top floor of a building on the 65th steps. You have to walk 66 steps to go up, and they ran. She grabbed my daughter and the dog, and ran downstairs to the miklat. I don't know if you know what the miklat is.
Yes.
Miklat is a bomb shelter. I don't know if anyone in Toronto has a bomb shelter, but we must have in every building a bomb shelter. And my wife ran down the steps, and I'm yelling to her, "Don't run down the steps." She says, "They have a missile attack. They have a missile attack." I said, "No, we build a bomb shelter on the roof to make it easier for her." So we actually a year ago built a bomb shelter. So she forgot about it. She was so panicked. And this is where we live in Jerusalem, Israel, and you're all invited to Ramot.
Thank you. So actually, Beit Vagan and Ramot. I actually went to yeshiva in Beit Vagan, Mikdash Melech. It's now actually not in Beit Vagan, but I lived there for 2 years. It was a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood, and I encourage everyone to go visit. And Ramot, Shmuel Hanavi is buried in Ramot. Actually, they say that his yard site was just a couple of days ago, I believe, on Kafchet Iyar. So yeah, 2 amazing places in Yerushalayim. And I'm glad to hear that your wife and family are safe, and what a great decision, I guess, to build. Yes, you don't think of that, but you live on the top floor, and you think the miklat is all the way downstairs. To build a bomb shelter up above was a smart decision. Eli, let's just get into it, because time is of essence and is short. Over the course of a lifetime, you meet people, you hear people who literally change the world with their inventions, their innovations, their ways of thinking. In the world of technology, a person might think of Elon Musk and Tesla, or Bill Gates, Microsoft, Steve Jobs, and Apple. One can argue that those individuals, it was all monetarily driven. It was all business. In the end of the day, it's business. These are companies that are worth billions of dollars. And then there are people who change the world, for lack of a better term, lishma, simply to make Earth a safer, more desirable place to live, a world of meaning, a world of mission. Fortunately, and kudos to the Jewish people, the Jews have done a pretty good job, I believe, in representing this Hall of Fame. You think of the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the Lubavitcher Rebbe as well, and like this many. I would like to put Eli Beer in that list, and although you probably would disagree with me just based on humility, So I guess my question to you is, as an introduction, where did this come from? Where does this idea, this notion to change the world, that you wanted to make a difference? Was it something that you just woke up one morning and said, okay, who needs law school? Who needs medical school? Business school? Nah, I just want to save lives. And if I may add, did you experience any pushback from your family, your friends, acquaintances, that may have told you, Eli, you're crazy. Come on, like this is never going to happen. Like, what do you need to get yourself in this for? Tell me how it started.
Well, thank you for asking. I was many times asked, the technology United Hatzalah uses is very unique. We invented this before anyone. We were the first ones 15 years ago, before iPhone. We had a technology that locates the closest to every emergency using 200 algorithms and calculating who is the closest to every emergency. So after we invented this, and years later, someone says, Uber took the same technology that you did, and they created a multi-billion-dollar business out of it. Aren't you jealous that you should have done Uber? I said, listen, I feel bad for Uber and Microsoft and other companies. They never thought about United Hatzalah. I feel very bad for them. All they accomplished in life is money. I'm very proud that United Hatzalah, from the day we started it, treated almost 5 million people. And I'll tell you how it started. When I was a young kid, I grew up in Jerusalem. I actually right next to my home on the way back from school, and by Vagan, they had a bus that came close to the bus stop, and we were standing there waiting for the bus. And when the bus stopped, it blew up. It was a bomb attack on the bus, the number 6 bus attack. It was one of the worst bomb attacks ever. Then 6 people were killed and many people were injured, and it was the first attack on a bus. And I didn't know what it was, but I realized one thing, that people were just screaming for help for a long time, and no one was coming to help them. People were trying to help them, but no ambulances came. And taxis came and pulled people inside the taxis and took them to the hospital. And I remembered that scene for many, many years. And then when I was 15 years old, I went to volunteer in the back of an ambulance. In Israel, you can volunteer early before you go to army. So I went to volunteer in the back of an ambulance. It was a wonderful experience. Being in the back of an ambulance, I used to write every emergency, how long it took us to get to every emergency, what time we received it. And I used to make averages of time in terms of every day and every week. How long it takes an emergency, an event, for an ambulance to arrive in that emergency. And I got to the conclusion that 17 minutes is the average emergency response.
Wow.
17 minutes until the first responder touches the patient. And then one day we get to a call after a year and a half volunteering in an ambulance, and I never saved anyone on an ambulance. A year and a half volunteering in Magen David Adom. I loved it. It was a wonderful experience, but I never got to save anyone. And a few things bothered me. Why don't we get to save people that were not breathing? And by the time we got there, it was too late. And it was every single time, again and again, car accidents where someone was hit really, really bad. We got there and ended up with someone dead. And then a 7-year-old boy was having lunch on a regular day, and his mother saw him choking, and she called for an ambulance. She called Magen David Adom for an ambulance. And we were the volunteers in the back of the ambulance. I was there with my friends, and they had a driver who was driving really quick to get there to save this boy. We really were praying to get there in time. It took us 21 minutes to get to this kid. 21 minutes. We were fighting traffic and the distance. We came from the other city, the other part of town. And we started CPR on a child who was choking. The kid was completely blue and cold. And we tried getting the object out. And then a doctor runs into the house, into the apartment. And he says, I'm a doctor, and I saw the ambulance parked downstairs. Can I help you? And he started helping us. 30 minutes working on this child, doing CPR. Crying while we were doing CPR. We had tears in our eyes, hearing the mother screaming and crying, save my son, save my son. After about 30 minutes, the doctor says, bring a sheet to cover this kid. We can't do anything else. That moment was the hardest moment of my life. I was 16 and a half years old, and I realized that moment that ambulances can save lives. But if this doctor would have known about it 21 minutes earlier, he would have saved his life, this kid. And we would have come there and just take a kid alive to the hospital to get checked out instead of covering this baby with this child with a sheet. In that moment, I said, I'm not going to continue volunteering in an ambulance. I want to create an emergency response organization that will respond to emergencies before ambulances. And this was an idea because I realized that we have a serious problem. People are dying every single day. Lots of people waiting for us to come help them save their lives. And they have a problem that needs to be fixed. And that's how I got him with the idea. And I gave it to my friends, and I told my friends about this idea. Everyone loved this idea. The only problem is, how do we get the emergency calls routed to us? So I went to the heads of Magen David Adom and then in Jerusalem, and I offered them, please connect me to your system. I'll buy like pagers or something that you could announce every emergency call. And if I'm close, I will respond. And they started laughing in my face like, they said, no, it's not something that's going to happen. This thing, if someone needs help, they must wait for an ambulance. Insurance and other reasons they didn't want to hear about. They threw me out of the room. And as you could see, I was a Meshuggah then too. And not only now. So I went ahead and I told my friends, we have a problem, but I have a solution. They said, how are we going to get the calls? I said, let's use the best innovation Israel ever invented, called chutzpah. And if they don't want to share the calls with us, we're going to get the calls without them. And we went ahead and we collected money in between us. I gave all my bar mitzvah money, and we bought police scanners, these police walkie-talkies that you can listen into ambulances and fire. If you know, I mean,
yeah.
Some of you are too young to know what they are, but they used to sell them in Radio Shack, Zechronam Livracha. And Radio Shack used to sell all these different walkie-talkies, and we bought 2 of them, and that's how we started, with an idea, saving lives within the first 90 seconds by, interrupting, or I would say disrupting the ambulance system, and coming and creating a new idea of a pre-ambulance service, a community-based ambulance service by people running by foot, or we came up with another idea then, creating motorcycles into ambulances. Instead of getting stuck in traffic with a 4-wheel big ambulance, we'll have a little ambulance, 2-wheeler, that has a defibrillator and oxygen and medical supplies, and we will get there in 90 seconds. And that's where the idea started.
That's really, really amazing if you think about it, all you've accomplished in not many years. The ambu-cycle, like you mentioned, is definitely the claim to fame of United Hatzalah, the shining light for the organization. No question, the main reason why you can access anyone in 3 minutes or less. What are you most proud of with United Hatzalah and the accomplishments? May I ask, where do you think there's still areas to improve, to excel? We all aim for perfection, although we know we can never be perfect. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is perfect. But where are there areas that you can excel? Do you have days where you say to yourself, you know what, we can do better, we need to do better? How do you see United Hatzalah 10, 15, 20 years from now?
Well, you asked me 4 questions now, so I'll start with the first one. What am I most proud of? I am most proud of a young lady in Jerusalem. Her name is Hadass. She's a mother to 6 children. She works in a factory in Jerusalem. She works hard. She works as a labor person in a factory, and she has a little tiny car that could hardly carry her children, could hardly drive. In the back of her car, Hadass's car, she has a defibrillator, medical supplies, and she's a trained EMT. And she carries a walkie-talkie on her. And every time an emergency happens nearby her, she stops everything she does. She runs out of the factory. The bosses let her. Her boss lets her. If she's at home while this emergency happens, taking care of her kids, she stops everything and she runs out of her home to help some random stranger who is in trouble. Hadass yesterday delivered a baby a few buildings away from where she lives. She doesn't know that lady that she delivered the baby for. This lady called for an ambulance because she felt the baby's coming out. Hadass got the call because she was the closest. She left the children while these big troubles are happening. Missiles are flying towards Jerusalem. And Hadass went to deliver a little baby. That's what I'm most proud of. Not the ambucycles, not the defibrillators, not the most fanciest command center that we have. I am proud of 6,000 men and women, Jews, Muslims, and Christians who are from all sectors, Haredi and secular, who are stopping everything they do to save other people. That's the most important thing of United Hatzalah. More than everything we have, training these people and getting more and more of them will enable United Hatzalah to get to a 90-second response everywhere in Israel, including the Golan Heights and the Negev. Because once you have a flash mob of volunteers who are ready to stop everything they're doing, a rabbi, if you're the rabbi of the Sephardic community in Toronto and you make Aliyah to Israel, and you could be a rabbi of the Ashkenazi community in Toronto, make Aliyah to Israel, volunteer for United Hatzalah, I promise you, you will meet together saving someone's life. That's the idea. And I want to accomplish in the next few years making sure that no one will ever die waiting for help.
Wow. Wow. I can tell you personally, 10 years ago, I delivered my son in a car. It was one of the most traumatic and unbelievable experiences of my life. However, there were not missiles flying over my head. As crazy and as anxious as I was at that moment, which I will never forget, I'm forever grateful to Hashem for making everything work out. But kol hakavod to Hadassah, 6,000 volunteers, unbelievable. One thing if it's your own child, but this is not your own child, and to go out there and drop everything that you have for the sake of Klal Yisrael is unbelievable. Eli, last March, you made headlines, but for the wrong reasons. We were at the start of the pandemic, and that at the time really wasn't declared a pandemic yet. Many thought it was a farce. There are still people who think that it's a farce. But when news spread that you contracted the virus, it took the Jewish world by surprise. Here's the man who devoted his whole life to saving lives, and in essence is asking us to save his by protecting ourselves and taking this seriously. Your personal plea video that went viral still makes me shiver thinking about it the day I saw it. I heard from the grapevines, and I could be wrong, correct me if I am, that you even went back to Miami, where you were, a year later, not long ago, as if to say, on the yahrzeit of what would have been the end, to express your thanks and gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for saving your life. Take us through that awful near-death experience. How did Yad Hashem, the hand of God, take you from death's doorstep to a second chance of life? And more importantly, how did it affect you spiritually as a Jew and the way you go about your day-to-day life running United Hatzalah? And I understand this might be difficult to talk about.
Well, I was a healthy human being. I'd never been to a hospital besides for helping people go to the hospital. I never went for myself, never suffered from any underlying conditions or my age. I was 46 at the time. So I was still in a safe area. So when I heard the pandemic was going on, I thought like everyone else, it's far from us. It's China, it's maybe Spain and Italy. But somehow America, North America, Canada will be all safe. Israel will be safe. And I hanged out. I was in APAC, of course, like every other Jew in New York. And I was traveling then to London right after APAC, and then I flew back to Miami. And I travel a lot. I travel so much. My kids call me Avinu Shebashamayim. So when I got to Miami, I felt something weird. It was Purim. And after Purim, like, I didn't feel so well. And I said, you know what? I don't know what it is, but I heard that people that have COVID don't feel well. So I'm going to isolate myself. I don't want to be next to anyone. I literally took responsibility, which I think is like a must. And I right away isolated myself in an apartment. 4 days, I was fighting fever. 4 days. I was fighting a terrible ache on my throat. And and then I started developing a shortage of breath. I couldn't breathe anymore. I decided to go check myself in the hospital. I got to Miami, University of Miami, and they checked me and they said, we need to put you in the ICU. I was shocked. And they checked me for COVID. They got the results about 2 days later. I was in the ICU. They were on full oxygen. My level of oxygen was very low. I was one of the first ICU patients they had. And then about 3 days later, the doctor comes into the room. It was a Friday afternoon. And he says, well, Eli, I have not so good news to tell you, that I have to put you on a coma, induce you into coma and put you on a ventilator. And I thought he's joking with me. I really thought he's joking. I didn't believe it. I know what putting someone in a ventilator, it's not, you don't do that if you really don't have to. So I said, I don't believe it. He said, yes. I said, are you serious? He said, your oxygen level is going down and down, and we can't control it. You're going to fall into a cardiac arrest if you don't get on a ventilator. So I called my doctors in Israel. They said, don't go on. Some people said, everyone was saying something else. So I finally called another doctor, and he says, Eli, do they have any ventilators available there? I said, yes. He says, grab one while you still have one. Well, he was right, because I just grabbed a ventilator. I said, okay, put me on. And I asked the doctor right before I was put on a ventilator, what's my chances of survival? He said, around 5%. So I called my family to ask what's going on. Just say, they asked me what's going on. I said, listen, it was Friday night in Israel. They called them 3 times, so they answered. And my wife and kids are all in Hatzalah. My wife's a volunteer. My children are. And I said to my wife, Kitty, I'm so sorry. They're putting me on a ventilator. And she burst out crying. She knew if they're putting me on a ventilator, I'm not going to survive. She heard what was going on in Italy. I don't know if you guys remember what was going on in Italy. Thousands of people were just dying on ventilators. And it's not because of the ventilator, actually. It's because of the COVID. They had no choice. And I actually thought I'm not going to make it. So I sent out this message that everyone should take it very seriously. Second of all, I thought it was not real. And then now I see it is real. So please take it seriously. Don't think it can happen to you. And second of all, I told people to pray for me and do an extra chesed for me, an extra good deed for me. And then I asked people to continue supporting United Hatzalah. I said, United Hatzalah is on the forefront of every emergency in Israel. Volunteers, they need the support. If I die, I want to make sure that United Hatzalah doesn't die and continues. Because I built this organization for one reason, to save people's lives. If I can't do it, please continue doing it. And I was sure I'm never going to survive this. Miraculously, a month later, I woke up in the hospital in Miami. I couldn't believe it. I was like, the doctors wake me up. I first thought I was kidnapped by bad people. It took me a long time. I actually told my wife on the phone, when they put her on the phone, they couldn't reach her. She was busy delivering a baby, my wife, Kitty. She's amazing. A woman in Ramot was giving birth. She delivered her. And finally, they got her on the phone. And the first thing I tell her, call the FBI. She says, why? I said, because they're going to kill me when they find out I'm Jewish. And I had ICU deliriums. It sounded funny, but it was really a terrible thing, which a lot of people suffer from. And some people even commit suicide after they go through this. It's a terrible experience. Waking up, not knowing where you are, you have no family next to you, so you don't really know. The doctors don't have time to tell you what's going on. And a whole month passed, dreaming very bad dreams. And anyways, I survived, and I said to myself, now that I survived, I'm going to make sure United Hatzalah is never going to be in danger again. And I'm going to put the next 5 years to make sure that we have a continuation, and we have an endowment, and we have people supporting from all around the world. And I told my wife, I'm traveling in a month and a half or two, I'm going to be traveling again. She says, Eli, you're not traveling for 2 years. I said, you'll see. In 2 months, I'll be on a plane. And I was right. She thought I'm never going to make it because I couldn't walk. I literally lost all my ability to walk. And I got back to myself within a month and a half. And now I'm in LA. This is my 10th trip. And I'm doing this for one. I didn't even take a bathing suit with me. I don't take a camera. I'm here to work for United Hatzalah to make sure more and more people hear about it and support it.
What's going through your mind when you hear that number, 5%? What are you thinking? Like that must have been mental torture. Baruch Hashem, you're here. You didn't die. You are still growing United Hatzalah. You are now a source of inspiration for everybody that now sees you and speaks to you and hugs you, maybe with a mask, but whatever. And but what's going through your mind at that moment?
Honestly, I was personally, I was okay with it. I was okay not to survive this. I was worried about the world. I was worried about my family. I was worried about Israel. I was worried about United Hatzalah. I was worried about everyone. I was really worried. I said, okay, I did my share in this world. I put 32 years building this organization. I have 5 kids. I was very sad that I'm not going to be a grandfather. My daughter was pregnant. I called my daughter begging her, tell me if it's a boy or girl. She didn't want to tell me. I was devastated. She said, you'll have to survive this to know. She says, I'm not going to tell you because I want you to survive it. And I had a hard time not seeing my family and but I was okay. I said, you know what, Hashem, I really did everything possible to be a good person. I know I did business properly. I did Hatzalah properly. I fought for this organization. Now it's, if I can't make it, I can't make it. I didn't cry because of myself. I was crying about Hatzalah. And I had a miracle. The doctor saw me crying and he said, what can I do for you? I said, listen, pray for me. And I told him all about Hatzalah. He knew, and he loved this. The doctor was not a Jewish guy. I said, pray for me. He says, I'm really not a prayer. I don't pray. He said, I'm an atheist. So I said, you know what? Why don't you do...
Yeah, you went on mute.
Sorry, no, because I got a phone call.
Okay.
So I said to the doctor, why don't you just do a good deed for me, in honor of me? Just do a good deed. And he said, okay, I'll do that for you. And then when I woke up, a month later, he came to me to visit me, and he said, you should just know, Eli, I prayed for you every day, and I did a good deed as well. He said, I did a few good deeds. And he said, now that you woke up, I'm a believer in God again.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's unbelievable. That gives me shivers just hearing that. That's incredible. I want to stick with COVID because COVID has taken its toll on pretty much every citizen on this planet. Nobody has been spared from the effects of this devastating plague. Here in Ontario, as you have heard, we're still currently in lockdown. Life has become difficult to say the least. Mental health is deteriorating at rapid speeds. Our schools are closed. Our shopping malls are closed. Outdoor life is limited. Personally, today for me was very difficult. It just really hit me like a ton of bricks. Besides your experience supporting, assisting, tending to those suffering physically from COVID, and you can expand on that as well. But how has United Hatzalah dealt with the side stories, the people at home, the loneliness? Tell us a little bit about what United Hatzalah does behind the scenes when the sirens aren't blaring.
So first of all, you should just know, I read about Canada, everything. I love Canada. I love Montreal. I love Toronto. I love the Jews living there. Canadians are Vancouver, of course, and other cities. It's just a beautiful country. And I'm saddened that the government of Canada had no seichel to run the country properly. I'm sorry. I hope the government doesn't hear me.
It's okay. They can hear you. We'll make sure they hear you.
no seichel to run their country. It's such a wealthy country, such a country, not a lot of population compared to the size of the country, and they couldn't get their act right. Even now, I had a friend who called me up yesterday crying.
I mean, good. Can't hear you.
Sorry,
We need your video. You need your video back.
I know.
There,
Every time someone calls me, it hangs up.
there you go.
Sometimes I have to speak to Zoom to tell them to do something about it. What happens? A guy calls me up in Canada and he says, my father's in the hospital. He's hardly breathing. Could you do something for me? I said, I wish I could. They have medications they don't bring to Canada. I'm very upset about there are certain things about Canada. And I really hope all of you are going to be well and Bezrat Hashem come over this. And I can tell you that we took responsibility. I asked my guys before I was put in a coma, I asked everyone to do another extra chesed for me. I really believe the world is saved by acts of goodness, of kindness. That's the only way we will be saved. If Sodom and Gomorrah did one chesed each, the whole city would have been saved. That's learn. You could tell them, you're the rabbi, I'm not a rabbi. If Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot said to Hashem, save Sodom, right? That wasn't it? I think I'm not mistaken. I don't know the Torah so well like you do, but I could say that chesed is the reason why the world is existing. And a place like Israel was such a small country surrounded with so many enemies. COVID would have destroyed it if it wasn't for the goodness of the people of Israel. And that's why we were saved. And I asked Hatzalah to do good things. And when I woke up, I asked what was going on with the organization. I was sure the organization shut down. I don't know why. I was sure. And they said, not only we didn't shut down, we're busy going out to 2,000 emergencies every day. Heart attacks, strokes, car accidents, other things. We took upon ourselves, all the older people in Israel who were locked down in their homes because they were not allowed to leave because they were afraid. So the government said everyone over a certain age could not leave their home. A lot of them were in serious trouble. They had no family. They had no one to help them. They don't have anyone going shopping for them. It was a very hard situation before Pesach. Who would shop for them before Pesach? Our volunteers opened a hotline. We had 60 dispatchers answering the phone calls. 60, helping people that needed help. And people called. Some lady said, I don't have electricity at home for 3 days and no electrician is willing to come. We sent a few volunteers to help her fix the electricity. One lady didn't have television. Everyone had a problem, shopping and everything. One story that hit me, that you will have shivers listening to the story. I woke up, I didn't believe what was going on in Israel, the chesed and everything. I said, tell me one story. So he said, a woman 5 minutes before Pesach called for help. She said, please save my life. They said, what's the problem? She said, I don't have candles to light for Pesach. They said, what's your address? They took her address in Bat Yam, a little city south of Tel Aviv. They said, we will send someone to give you candles. Within 3 minutes, a volunteer was already in the Makolet, a little supermarket in Jaffa, the city of Jaffa. He was a Muslim Arab volunteer. His name is Ibrahim. He took the ambucycle, this little motorcycle that he drives to save lives, and he bought a box of candles, and he drove over to this woman's home in Bat Yam. He knocks on the door on the top floor of a building. She opens the door. She sees him with this orange vest, and she starts crying. She said, did you bring the candles? And he hands her the candles. And she starts hugging and kissing him, and she says, you saved my life. And she runs over, and she starts putting the candles in the box or whatever it is, and she starts lighting the candles. And he's looking at her, and he's counting 15 candles. And then he sees she has a number on her hand, on her arm. She has a number here. Oh. Ibrahim realizes that she's a Holocaust survivor. So he has tears in his eyes, and he asks her, could I stay with you a little? Could I spend some time? And he spent 2.5 hours with this woman. And she gave him her life story, and she had no one to talk to. She was lonely. He just sat and had the Seder night with her. He ate matzah. He spoke to her. And then he asked her, why did you why were you lighting 15 candles? And why did you say that I saved your life? I just brought you candles. She said, when I grew up in Europe, my mother and I never missed a Shabbat or a Chag, lighting candles together, since I'm a little kid. And then when my mother was sent to the concentration camps and I was left in another concentration camp, I was...
Yeah, the cell phone. There you go.
So I never missed a Shabbat or a thing. And in the concentration camp, I always lit a piece of paper or a piece of wood during the time, every Shabbat or every holiday. I never missed a Shabbat or a holiday, lighting something, even for 10 seconds. And when I was liberated, I went to Israel. I decided I'm going to light every Shabbat, every Chag, candles for my whole family who were murdered by the Nazis. And I never missed a Shabbat. And all of a sudden today, for the first time being in Israel, I realized that I don't have candles to light for my family. And I was missing candles. And she said, if I had to light a piece of paper back to my ages where I was in the concentration camps, this will be my last day of my life. Ibrahim, she said to him, you brought me candles and you saved my life. When I heard that story, I said, I'm coming back to Israel. I was so weak, I could hardly move. I had a miracle. I couldn't get to Israel. There was no flights. Everything was locked down. This was right after Pesach. I woke up a day after Pesach. And I said, how do I get to Israel? And all of a sudden, I get a phone call from my wife. She says, Miriam Adelson, Sheldon Adelson's wife. She's a doctor who really took care of me also. She called the hospital every day for me. She called and she says, I heard Eli woke up. I want to fly him back to Israel to see you and the family. And that was one of my miracles that I had. But knowing that Israel, the chesed was the number one thing United Hatzalah was doing. And this is what every Jew should do, chesed. Always available to do chesed 24/7.
You know, today in my Shemona Esrei during Mincha, I just closed my eyes and I looked up to Hashem. I said, Hashem, like, what's it going to take already? Like, when is this going to end? We need to get out of this. Give me a little sign of hope. And I think what you said right now, this is a message to everybody listening right here, whether live and when we go to send out this recording. You want this to end, let's do an act of chesed. We need to do acts of kindness, good deeds for one another. Pick up the phone, call someone who you haven't spoken to in a while, go and visit, drop off a coffee at someone that you know can't go out, do the groceries for someone. These are inspirational stories that will change the world. It will get us out of it. It's Mina Shamayim that you told me that. Like you said, I'm shivering right now. What an incredible story. Eli, last week or a week and a half now, almost two, Klal Yisrael experienced a tragedy that we are still reeling from in the city of Meron, which claimed the lives of 45 precious Jewish souls. Everyone's still trying to wrap their head around what happened, and of course no one has answers and no one can explain why such a gezerah took place on Bnei Israel. I have a two-part question. Describe the order, the procedure at that moment that United Hatzalah gets the call for what's happening. What's the plan of action? Who decides? How does it work? How do you maneuver through so many people? What is the goal of the mission at that point? Is it just saving lives? Is it recovering bodies? And two, arguably even more important, how does United Hatzalah deal with the after effect, the mental toll on your responders? How do you find the strength to continue after such devastation?
So I'll tell you, every single year, we go to Meron. And Meron is a place where so many people love to come to help. We have a registration for volunteers. Every year we have up to 300 volunteers that we bring. We have probably more than double of people want to come. We just say, you want to go on your own. We have only 300 volunteers that we need. And 300 is a lot, but it's a small little place, but they have talking about hundreds of thousands of people in a 24-hour period. So a lot of emergencies happen there. So we really organized. We have 4 centers in Meron. One of our centers was right with where everything happened. That was our center, the Hatzalah Center there. And every single year when we went there, in the end of Meron, I always said, Hashem, you made a big miracle for us that no one died. Let's open a bottle of wine and drink. Like we're Jews, we drink. If a ness happens, we drink. So we drink about l'chaim. We make a l'chaim, every single one. Every year, l'chaim, we pick up, we drink. This is the first year, unfortunately, that we didn't make a l'chaim. In 30 years that I go there. The first year that we did not make a l'chaim was this year. And being there, I wasn't there. My guys were there. I was traveling, and I was talking to my head of Hatzalah guys, and it was just, they were crying on the phone. I spoke to one paramedic who's seen bomb attacks, who's seen accidents, who's seen a lot of bad things. He said, Eli, I never been in a situation where I have to do 13 CPRs, one after another. CPRs, resuscitation people. And every single one of them that I did, I had to announce dead. And it was like, he said, I don't know how I'm going to cope with this. I spoke to him tonight again. He's in Sderot, helping save lives in Sderot. And I said to him, are you strong enough? Could you handle this? He says, Eli, I don't have time to feel bad for myself. I don't have time. I have a responsibility. I'm wearing this vest, he said. I'm wearing the Hatzalah vest. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I have what to do here. And I'm busy now saving lives in Sderot. And that's the type of people we have. Yes, we do have professionals who come to talk to our volunteers to take them out of the misery that they went through, to take them back, to snap them out of post-traumatic stress that could occur to them. We have unbelievable volunteers who actually do it for others. We have 600 volunteers who are in the psychotrauma unit, who help people cope with troubles that they could develop post-traumatic stress, and they snap them out of it. They help save lives of people who are emotionally affected, not only physically. So we do that all around the country. But when it comes to us, and I think the best example is my own, myself. Last week I was in Miami when I got the phone call about Meron, and I get a phone call, what's going on? I couldn't sleep from that second. It was like, I woke up in the middle of the night when they told me what was going on. They were telling me how many deaths. I literally, it was the worst misery for me because I was away from everyone, and I see what my people go. And I open my cameras on my computer. We have 100 cameras in Meron, our cameras. I could see everything, what was going on. I thought, I don't know how to expect. I said, Chas v'shalom, 10 people will be dead. I was worried that 10 people will be dead. And then when I saw 11 and 12 and 13 and 14, I said, Hashem, please stop. This should be the last. I don't want to hear 15 or 16. And then the numbers started going up to 40. When I got up to 45, I couldn't believe it. And then I get a phone call from a guy, and a nice man. He calls me up crying. He says, I live in Bergenfield in New Jersey. He says, my son's missing. Other people are calling me, help this kid from Toronto, from Montreal, help this kid from Muncie. We can't find them. I started getting phone calls from people. Ended up that my daughter calls me up, and she says, Abba, I was doing CPR on an American kid. I said, how do you know? My daughter's a paramedic in Hatzalah. My 25-year-old daughter, Abigail. She said, I was doing CPR on a child. I said, how do you know he was American? She said he was dressed differently from the other CPRs I was doing. So we went through, and then I figured out that this was the son of the one who called me from Bergenfield, Donnie Morris, Zichrono Livracha. Unfortunately, he did not make it. So that was a very, very hard incident for us. But again, the responsibility that we have as volunteers wearing this vest of Kiddush Hashem, of Chesed, gives us the power to continue. Otherwise, I don't think, if we would have been there as civilians, I don't think we would have made it emotionally.
Wow. Transitioning to something similar, fresh in our minds. and I see time is running short. So the last 48 hours have been extremely heart wrenching for Klal Yisrael. You're talking now hundreds of rockets towards innocent civilians. And it made me think and ask myself, United Hatzalah gets to Meron, they know the situation, they know what they have to do. It's a matter of doing it safely. Sometimes, as we saw, recovering the bodies of those that were really badly dismembered or torn, or performing CPR and trying to save the lives of others. But here, in what's happening right now as we speak, everything is unknown. We don't know the situation. We don't know what's going to happen next or when it's going to happen next. Is it possible to prepare for such a thing? Is it simply, at this point, we just wait for the phone call, or we wait for the sirens, or we follow the rocket in the air? Let's remember, while everybody else is seeking a bomb shelter when the sirens blare, that's when your work actually begins. That's when you exit the bomb shelter and attack the area immediately to tend to the casualties. Is it different? How is it different? How do you go about what's happening right now? And I know you're in Los Angeles, but how are your volunteers right now tending to this situation?
So, look, we are prepared for, we weren't prepared for 45 people to die in Meron. We weren't prepared for it. We're not prepared for a huge event. We're not. This is, if Chas v'Shalom, this situation right now, when I started the Zoom, over 120 missiles were launched towards Israel. I'm not sure how long we could handle ourselves. We're a volunteer organization. We depend upon volunteers. We depend upon donations. We need to make sure our volunteers are strong enough to handle so much. We went through many of these events, but after a few weeks, if it ends and it's not too bad, we can handle it. If it becomes really, really bad, Hashem Yirachem, because if Chas v'Shalom, this situation gets worse, where the Hezbollah, Yamach Shemam v'Zichram, from the north of Israel, join into the battle, and the Arabs in Israel, that some of them, not all of them, of course, we have some Arabs who want to live peacefully in Israel, but Arabs in Israel who hate Israel, who hate Judaism, who hate people that are not them, join in, like we see in Lod, in Ramleh, in Nazareth, and in other places in East Jerusalem. If Chas v'Shalom, this becomes an internal intifada, plus the south and south and north of Israel, this could be a battle that I don't know if we can handle. We're trying our best. Now we're going through preparations. We had a 2-hour Zoom call just an hour and a half ago that ended with the Israeli Army Home Front Command, how to prepare, because they told us that we need to prepare for a few weeks now. And I hope it ends earlier than a few weeks. And I hope we finish this battle once and for all. We can't take this anymore. It's very, very hard for the people. Think about, I don't know if you could handle in Toronto 10 missiles launched towards Toronto. I don't think you could handle. You're talking about today alone, 500 missiles. Missiles, not little balloons.
Hashem Yirachem. Hashem Yirachem. All we can do here, across the ocean is pray, continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in Israel. Like we said, do acts of chesed. One, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lazeh. One mitzvah, one act of kindness can really, really save a life, even if it's across the sea. Eli, last but certainly not least, you're joining us here tonight as I believe one of your last stops. You said you're on your way back to Eretz Yisrael. You are raising much needed funds for United Hatzalah. If you had to leave over one message, one takeaway for the Sephardic community of Toronto, what would you want us to know? What would you want us to remember, to think about every time we hear the name United Hatzalah?
You should think about, you want to be in a good side of people who are helping each other, helping, like we said before, when you're davening Shmoneh Esrei, you said, how do we stop this pandemic? How do we stop this trouble? You want to be in the side. Hashem gave the human being. My parsha was Parashat Nitzavim, when Nitzavim Vayelech, and Hashem gives the human being, he gives the Jews the opportunity to be good or bad, and Hashem recommends Ubacharta b'chaim. It says ben atov and ben hara, ben hachaim and ben hamavet. Ubacharta b'chaim. I don't know if I'm saying it. 30 something years past.
Pretty
my
good.
bar
Pretty
mitzvah.
good.
And I think this is, when you hear about United Hatzalah, you should think you want to be part of them. You want to be supporting them, but you don't have to actually run and save someone's life. You need to be on the side of the good people. Ubacharta b'chaim. Be part of the Hatzalah, like a machawi. You could help other people, like you want other people to help you if you're in trouble. That's why I'm taking this opportunity to, first of all, thank all of you for being part of this and being part of the goodness, part of the good in the world. We need more and more good people in the world to win the bad people in the world. And I want to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues in Toronto, Ilana, who you should say hi, Ilana, and Rachel. I think Rachel is on. Rachel,
right, she's on.
Ilana and Rachel, who are representing United Hatzalah, Canadian Friends of United Hatzalah. We have a great team there, and if anyone wants to be involved and learn more, we have a website, israelrescue.org. You can learn more and support United Hatzalah. We have a big need of equipment, of bulletproof vests and helmets to protect our volunteers. Volunteers in Chulon, I never thought in my wildest dreams I'm going to have to give Chulon bulletproof vests and helmets. I knew in Judea and Samaria, in the Gaza border, but now Chulon, Rishon LeZion, even Hatzalah. So these are things that I want to make sure that we get help with and support to buy all the medical.
What type of budget are we? What type of budget are you dealing with over here? How can people support you? You mentioned the website, israelrescue.org. I'm assuming they can go over there. But how big of a need? I'm sure every dollar counts. But when we're asking the people to open up their wallets and support your organization, what's your budget? What's your yearly budget for something like this?
Our yearly budget is we treat over 500,000 people a year, 500,000 people that need help and medicines and equipment and training. For this budget, the emergency budget, we're allocating $2 million that we need to raise. And we got an incredible person in New York, Mark Gerson, and his wife, Erica Gerson, are going to match. That means they're going to give us $1 million if we raise $1 million for medical supplies, which is simple. We're buying bulletproof vests and helmets that are missing. We need about 200 of bulletproof vests and helmets. We need around 150 trauma kits, trauma equipment to treat people who are injured, burning equipment if someone is burned, and defibrillators. So that's a $2 million budget that we have, and we're trying to raise $1 million because we're going to get the $1 million from Mark and Erica Gerson if we raise the money that we need.
We could use any support that we could get. I will send something out. We are actually running a campaign, an emergency campaign. I will send it to everybody tomorrow. Eli mentioned it, and we have a really rare opportunity that the money is being matched between today and Friday only. If we raise up to $1 million, whatever $1 million is raised, they'll double it. In addition to that, we also have our psychotrauma unit, which is needed. Eli mentioned the bulletproof vest. We're also running a campaign to save lives. Believe it or not, to save all these lives that they save in a day is $24,000 Canadian. And wow. If people could sponsor a day, a half a day, an hour, whatever they could do, we have tons of equipment needs. We have defibrillators.
It's actually an amazing idea. Ilana, I love that idea. It's a $24,000 campaign, Canadian, to actually sponsor the whole day of emergencies. You actually get a book of every single emergency that happened that day. You sponsor a special day, an anniversary, a birthday, your type. And it's an incredible thing. And you could sponsor an hour too, but it will help United Hatzalah knowing that someone here is sponsoring a bulletproof vest and helmet, which costs, I think, $900 or $950, or a trauma kit, which costs about $6,000 with a defibrillator. So everything is in our website, and you can choose what you want to do, and everything will be matched.
You guys heard it right here live. The link is right there in the chat, or you can check out israelrescue.org to support. It is so crucial. You heard it, the emergency campaign.
Rabbi, I'm going to interrupt because we have a question that's been asked twice.
Oh,
and it
yeah?
is a question that said, is United Hatzalah the same as the Hatzalah here in Toronto? And the answer is no. There is a Hatzalah in Toronto. It's not the same organization. We're Canadian. They do incredible work too. They definitely do. But we are Canadian Friends of United Hatzalah of Israel, and we're separate. We both do incredible work. But I wanted to answer that question.
For sure.
So, Eli, you want to say something?
No, I love Hatzalah in Toronto. They do amazing work, like you said. But we are totally in Israel. Everything we do is in Israel. We are here to protect the country and our country. It's yours and mine. I live there now, but you're going to live there soon. You all know that.
Yes.
Bezrat Hashem.
Bezrat Hashem. You know, we just recently we had the here in North America, the Hatzalah Fund. You've probably received many emails about it, supporting Hatzalah across North America. If you believe in the concept, which I don't doubt that there's anyone here that does not, you understand how important this is. And of course, for our millions of brothers in Eretz Yisrael, how many thousands a day, phone calls a day, 3 minutes or less, ladies and gentlemen. The emergency campaign is happening right now. You can check it out on the link on the chat or go to israelrescue.org, matching up to $1 million up until Friday. Eli Beer, thank you so much for tonight. It was my honor. I can't believe I was zochet, privileged to sit here and hear your story live. It is just so inspiring, so motivational for everyone here. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank all the listeners. I want to thank Ilana and Rachel and all the people that set this up, and Isaac as well. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Don't forget, click the link, support United Hatzalah, help Klal Yisrael, do an act of chesed, do an act of kindness, change the world, save a life. Wishing everyone a wonderful evening. Have a great night.
Thank you. And I'll just say that we've done a lot of synagogues and a lot of events, and Isaac wanted to get to 100. He got pretty damn close, and this is the largest event we've had. So your community is amazing.
Right on. Right on.
Thank you.
Be well, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Lots to be proud of. Thank you. Toda rabah. Be safe, everybody, and be well.
Amen.